Welcome to the Hacksaw Podcast. I am Everett, joined by Jordan over here. Say hi, Jordan.
Hey, everybody.
All right, welcome in. This is episode 1, where we are going to be talking about some highly praised, highly well-received works in the world of film, in the world of music, maybe even like some little bit of business here or there, you know? We might talk about some guys that might, your Elon Musks and whatnot. We're not saying he's a hack, but, of that caliber. I'm trying to tease out a later episode, Jordan. Okay, I'm not gonna say spoilers. He fucking is. Who cares about that guy? Fuck that guy. Fuck Elon Musk.
Yeah.
But today we're gonna be talking about a particular film, and it's gonna be part of an anthology, you could say, like an anthology about a director who has been a thorn in our sides for a good decade, I'd say, like almost the better half of a decade, where each film is just more gross in terms of it's just the fact that he wouldn't want to show this to people, the fact that he put this together and was like, here's a completed film. We're talking, of course, about Christopher Nolan. What? Yeah, Christopher Nolan, he's a total fucking hack, and we don't like him, and we're going to give you a lot of reasons why.
Exactly. We're going to go through all the different reasons why. We're not exactly going to be talking about every film he's made. He's not made that
would
many.
Take 9 years for us to talk about in depth, like every single film that would fit into the criteria of this podcast.
Right, yeah. We're just going to talk about the things in general and we're going to highlight certain films that we think best exemplify the criticisms that we have.
Yeah, and the first film we're going to be talking about today is his most recent film. Came out in 2017, right?
Yeah, summer 2017.
Summer 2017, we were talking about Dunkirk.
Yeah, Dunkirk is Christopher Nolan's first film that's actually based off real historical events, whereas all of his prior films have been original for the most part, outside of the Batman trilogy that he directed, which is based off. Also,
would you say it's his first crack at like a period piece, or like just like more like a historical drama?
Let me think. Well, I would consider the Prestige to be sort of a period piece.
Well, see, here's the thing though, is that like I'm not, I was being a little bit tongue in cheek in the intro there. I do actually like the Prestige. Like, I will say that off the top of my head. I'm going to try and say some good things about Dunkirk. I'm going to try and say some good things about Christopher Nolan. It's not going to be a lot, but they'll be there. But I did enjoy the Prestige. Actually, I haven't seen it in a long time. I chose not to watch it just because I was like, when I did see it, I was like, it's not too bad.
I figure any movie that has David Bowie in it can't possibly be bad.
Yeah, no, but today we're going to be getting into Dunkirk. And there's a few things subjects where we're going to be kind of running criteria on here. And that is that, first of all, the marketing of this film, and marketing in general in films, sometimes kind of shape that film's message and its purpose. Because sometimes, people make movies just for fun, make like a fun action movie, fun horror movie. You know what I mean? It's not really supposed to have like a message, or it's not supposed to say anything profound or anything like that. It's just fun. You just go to the movies, have a good time, have some popcorn, you might get lucky with a girl or something like that. It's something on the background, like whatever.
Yeah, going to see a movie called, I Knew It Was, or Where Were You Last Night?
Yeah.
Starring Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, Where Were You Last Night?
Starring Jennifer Aniston and...
Oh, you were here the whole time. In my heart. But no, this movie is the complete opposite of that. This movie was very serious from the get-go, like from the marketing itself. Like the marketing even, like I saw some like, I don't know what you would call them, but like, how like you go to like the movies and like, in the like for example, like for 1917 they had like a preview at the theaters of like kind of like a behind the scenes type thing, where it's like it wasn't just the trailer, it was also like, oh, this is how we shot this amazing scene that we shot, and it's like so amazing that we have to show you how it was done, and it's just a tracking shot in a field somewhere. But they kind of did the same thing with Dunkirk, and the marketing thing that they did, which really started to prop this movie up, was they took actual like war veterans, like 100-year-old World War II British Army veterans, to see this movie. And a lot of them came out of it and were just like, it was like I was there. I was back in it. And, like, it's hard with this because, they're like 100 years old. Okay? And this movie is like the loudest fucking thing, like all of Christopher Nolan's movies is. If you go see them in theaters, like they tend to be like just pushing the sound system to the point of like it's probably peaking throughout the entire mix.
Right. In order to have served in World War II at the earliest, I'm thinking that you would have to have been born in probably the early 1920s.
At least. I mean, I know that there is stories of like 16-year-old kids lying about their age and going to the service. I mean,
sure.
that shit's been happening forever. But even then, the guys that went and saw this movie, and like if they come out and they say like, that movie fucking sucked, and like like that movie is like not, this didn't happen, that's right. They're not gonna like film that and show that in the trailer. They're gonna find the one dude that doesn't even know where he's at. He doesn't know. He just gets kind of led around by his grandchildren, and he just happy that he gets to dress up in his uniform that day because it's awesome. And he gets to go out. I mean, that must be the best part about being a veteran is you get to dress up in that uniform with all the medals and everybody. You just look badass and cool. Mm-hmm. But he gets to go do that. I mean, I would do that anytime I got a chance to. I'd do that for the rest of my life. I would just wake up in it, just go to sleep in it. But you
never
just
take it off.
Just never take it off. Yeah, you go to the grocery store in that, like everybody's gonna like salute you. They're gonna like let you cut in line. Like it's like here's my son. You have him. It's like it's like it's all gonna be. It's just gonna be great. But so they get this guy dressed up and they go take him out to see this movie, and he just is looking around. He doesn't know where he is at, and this movie is so fucking loud and not in a good way. That, like, yeah, if you were a war veteran, you're probably having flashbacks the entire time, and you probably were back there. Mm-hmm. But this marketing really just propped this movie up to be the serious film that is supposed to kind of, like, be this piece that, like, sort of sheds light on the men that endured this great struggle, especially in Dunkirk and during the Operation Dynamo, which was the operation in which they went to go rescue everybody off the beach.
Yeah, exactly. If you actually look up like everything that actually happened during Operation Dynamo, it's pretty insane. There was almost 500,000 soldiers stranded on this beach. Also being attacked at every now and then.
It's getting strafed by like German planes. Like
yeah, they're just being shot at. There's bombs being dropped on them. There's soldiers getting blown up, dying. They're all miserable. They're starving. They're desperate.
Yeah, they're just like sitting ducks on this beach, just getting Germans just taking pot shots at them.
I mean, I would honestly rather be in a prison camp than probably on that beach.
Absolutely.
Not saying a prison camp would be great.
No.
Far from it.
Unless you go to a prison camp today.
Right.
Today it's not so bad. But I mean, you get three hots and a cot, man. You just got a job. You can go to the library. You got a TV. You can watch Jersey Shore all day. It's fine. Whatever.
Sounds okay.
Most people's lives in the prison camps are probably better there than they were outside.
Sure. Yeah. For some of them, at least.
So at least. But if you need a bit of a historical kind of context for Dunkirk, Dunkirk is a town in France, and basically the French and the British Army were beaten back by the Germans all the way to the shores of France, kind of opposite to England, like through the English Channel. And the last kind of town that they were held up in is this town called Dunkirk. And the Germans basically surrounded it, and essentially it was a siege. And there wasn't really a plan to like get these guys like evacuated in like a timely manner. So what you ended up with was like 500,000 men just sitting on the beach with nowhere to go. In front of them is the English Channel, and behind them is like the entire German Wehrmacht, like and SS, just like sieging. And then you have German planes flying over and strafing the beach. You have tanks and artillery firing onto the beach, and they're just sitting there waiting for the French and British generals to come up with a plan to get these men off the beach. And they came up with Operation Dynamo, which was just sending ships over the channel and getting the men off. And then another aspect of that is that a lot of civilians took it upon themselves, like old men or young boys who weren't fit to serve in the military or something like that. They took their own, like, privately owned, their own boats and their own stuff that they owned, and they sailed across the English Channel to help pick up soldiers.
Right, exactly. There's a lot of civilian ships that were sent over and people who volunteered to help out just to help with the overall mission. That's something that's highlighted a little bit in this movie. That's one of the three, I guess you could say, one of the three different
like points of view, I'd say.
Points of view, yeah.
Yeah, like perspectives of the film, because like the three perspectives would probably be like the soldiers on the beach, the civilians, and then the Tom Hardy who plays in the air.
Right. Yeah.
But there's at the very beginning of this movie, the way it starts should kind of tip you off. If you watch any war movies, if you watch anything that's trying to sort of portray an event in history, especially a really like tragic or graphic or very just important but tragic moment in history, like you talk about like Schindler's List, for example. You know, it's a movie that's like, it's talking about a very serious subject, obviously, but it's doing it with a lot of care and a lot of love to show that to kind of give people just a tiny bit of taste of what those people had to go through, so that those people would appreciate and respect those people, and also respect what had happened, so that it will never happen again. You know, to like just to really take that in, and it's a phenomenally effective film. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why it's a phenomenally effective film is because Steven Spielberg, the director of Schindler's List, who is, you know, Jewish himself and had family that suffered during the Holocaust, he had a personal connection with it. And he had a personal, it felt to me, watching the movie, that he had a personal kind of drive to make this movie as effective as possible to try and give people that experience.
Right. Well, with Schindler's List, that film was a great personal struggle for Spielberg. A lot of Jews wanted him to make the movie when they heard about the story or heard about the...
That is a true story, right? Like of Schindler.
Oscar Schindler.
Schindler. Yeah, because I remember that now. It's been a little while since I've seen it, but I do remember. Yeah, that was a like word for word. That's exactly what happened, pretty much.
I don't know about word for word, but
it's a movie. It's dramatized in some ways, but like overall, the story is.
But overall, the story is very faithful.
Yeah.
To the original events, and he wasn't sure if he really wanted to make this movie because all the movies that with some exceptions, of course, but a lot of the movies he was making up to that point were not that serious. I mean, for example, the movie he made before Schindler's List was Hook.
How do you bring your mind down? And
you know,
how do you? All right, so I'm gonna have to switch a little bit of gears here. Like I'm gonna have to bring it down a little bit. All right, let's get out of this mindset. But the point I'm trying to make is that that movie is a labor of love, and it's a movie with real purpose, and it really wanted to show what those people went through, so that you could see it and that you could try to maybe begin. You will never understand. You'll never fully understand what those people went through, but maybe you will have a bit of a better perspective of what happened. And Dunkirk was marketed to be a similar film in a way where it was doing what Spielberg did with Schindler's List, but doing that with what happened to the soldiers on Dunkirk, on the beaches of Dunkirk. And, the event itself is something in British history that's, it's a very poignant point in British history that people refer to a lot, because it's an act of heroism. Anytime you have an act of heroism in a country and it becomes part of their lore, it becomes this cemented thing in that country's lexicon.
Sure, exactly. One thing, for example, you could think of would be the people who rose the flag up on Iwo Jima.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, it's
like
fathers. It's that
super
that iconographic that iconic image.
Right. It's like highly patriotic, but like in a good way, I'd say.
Sure.
Like, I mean, usually like patriotism starts to become nationalism like real quick. But there are certain things like back then, like, that were very patriotic, that it's good to be patriotic, and that's there's nothing wrong with that. It's good for Britain to be patriotic about Dunkirk, because it was a great thing that the civilians of Dunkirk did by risking their own lives, because crossing the English Channel wasn't just like taking the boats out and crossing the channel. There's like German submarines, there's still planes flying over, shooting at them. It was basically like a 50-50 chance that you're going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie cuts corner after corner. It takes away from every single aspect of the event itself and just softens every edge of it. It softens every edge. It takes away every bit of like true, deep kind of patriotic moments. It just and puts it out in a way that's like he cared more about the theater experience than he did about sort of immortalizing the event.
Yeah, well, what you said right there, I think, kind of nails it about softening the edges. I mean, this movie is PG-13, but I think this movie really could have probably been PG rated if it wasn't for the one. There's one scene.
There's one scene with a guy with like a bloody tissue on his neck.
Oh, I think even that would have flown, but there's actually one scene where someone says fuck.
Oh, they get your one fuck.
They got the one fucking.
Yeah, the one PG-13 fuck. That's always, when I was a kid.
Soldier says that, and then it's like, oh, well, PG-13 right there.
I figured that out when I was younger, that you could get one fuck for 13. And for PG, you could get like one ass.
You can say shit in a PG movie.
Because I think in Home Alone 3, he says horse's ass.
Yeah.
And it's a PG movie or something like that. And when I was a kid, I was like, ha!
Well, because I remember I saw a movie as a kid called Fly Away Home with Anna Paquin. And
is that the one with the geese?
That's the one with the geese.
Okay, yeah. I remember watching that in like school. When like science class or something. I think my teacher was hungover that day.
Well, one of the few things I remember from that movie still, because I haven't watched it since I was like maybe 9, was there's a scene where something's flying over a hunter, and he goes, "Holy shit!"
Yeah.
He said shit.
Yeah. You got his one shit in. But this movie, when I talk about softening the edges, you can just start with the first scene of the film. The very first scene, it's supposed to it shows a bunch of British soldiers in the streets of Dunkirk. And they're kind of like around some defensive positions, and there's this like kind of faux like attempt at tension where they're just kind of waiting for the Germans to kind of come in. They're just sort of like standing or just like at their positions, and German propaganda pamphlets start falling from the sky. And the first thing I noticed is that like, wow, for a town that has been incessantly shelled and strafed by aircraft. Shot at by tanks, just small arms fire. There's not a freaking speck of dust. There's not a broken window. There's not a piece of paint that's chipped off of the street. It looks better than like the best parts of downtown Seattle.
Yeah, for comparison. Yeah, exactly. In reality, there'd be so much damage done to these buildings.
Oh, I've seen pictures. Like, there's pictures of it. It looks like a ruined hellscape. And, why are we talking about this right now? It's because when you're setting the scene itself is going to set your tone. Like, just the setting around it. And if you have this pristine, idyllic town that looks like it hasn't been touched by a graffiti artist, let alone a war, it's gonna soften what the experience is around you. You know, it's gonna soften the look of the film. Like if you look at Saving Private Ryan, for example, every time they go into a town, it's always like every single building is like crumbling. You know, there's like every single building has like a giant hole in it that they're sitting in. You know, it's like all the streets are covered in like bullet shells, and there's grenade impacts, craters everywhere. You know, it's just like it looks like a war zone.
Right, exactly. Look, especially for a war movie, I think one of the most important things you have to do is really set the scene at the beginning.
Establish your tone.
You need to establish your tone, and you need to have some sort of impact with that. You know, you need to really bring people in. You know, Saving Private Ryan is probably the example that most immediately comes to mind. But if I think of all my favorite war movies, I think another really good example would be the opening scene in Glory, which is one of my favorite films, which opens with a giant, well, not a giant, but...
Isn't that open with, like, the town that's being, like, set on fire? Or is that later? I think I'm thinking of something else.
That's not quite what happens, but in the opening of Glory, it just opens with just a battle scene. And it's just this chaotic, brutal battle, and then after the battle's over, you just see hundreds or thousands of soldiers all just wounded or dead on the battlefield, and then it just really it sets the mood. It sets the mood. It brings you in.
Yeah. Christopher Nolan tries to set the mood by having paper fall from the sky, saying that and he has like 8x11 copy paper like thrown into a fan and blown onto the set.
Yeah, just picture a giant bag.
Some intern on a ladder
from above the cameras, just dropping things.
Yeah, it's just like the Germans are like, just be like, hey, like surrender or something.
Yeah. Well, the propaganda is like, you are here, we are here. You're fucked. Better surrender now.
And then as we go on, this same thing. The movie never establishes any set of like feeling that these men are in any immediate danger. Like throughout the entire film, like of course, like abstractly, if you think about what's actually the movie's actually referring to, yes, they are in danger the entire time. But like the movie never really fully makes the viewer feel, or anybody in the film feel, like they're in that much danger. It's like after the scene of like the soldiers in the very beginning walking through the town, and then like the Germans starting to shoot at them and stuff, we get to the next scene, which is into the beach, and we get our first look at the beach. And Jordan, you just got back from Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I did get back from Hawaii recently.
And would you say that the beaches of Hawaii were better, or did the beaches in Dunkirk look better?
They looked about the same. Actually, I'd say the beaches on Dunkirk look a little bit better.
It looks a little bit cleaner.
Looked really clean.
Like I imagine at least in Hawaii on the beaches there's a bit of trash here or there.
Yeah, or at least some footprints.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing you notice when you go into
there
the
are at least
scene.
Some track marks.
There's no track marks. Like I looked at a photo of what the
garbage
beach,
here or there.
Yeah, I looked at a photo of like somebody snapped like actually who was there there during the Dunkirk evacuation. And there is not an inch of sand that's not covered with either a dead body, a huddle of soldiers, a broken down truck, a fucking shell hole, barbed wire, or just like piles of military garbage and crates and just like all sorts of filth everywhere. It looks like a nightmare. It looks like a hellscape. And you go onto this beach in this movie, and there's like 10 dudes standing there. That's supposed to represent the whole 500,000 people that are there.
Hey, let's not exaggerate. I'd say there are at least there's like 50.
There's like a small handful of guys. Like this is a major Hollywood, like this is a major well-funded movie that couldn't even get extras.
Yeah, there's also, I think, hardly any vehicles. Hardly any other.
I don't remember a single vehicle.
I think I saw a truck when the camera panned over one direction.
I don't even remember that. Like I remember just them sitting, like just standing at attention on the beach, and then I remember like behind each kind of like small block of soldiers. There was like a neatly laid out like set of crates. And like that was it. That was their clutter. That's how they're gonna show chaos. That's how they're gonna show that's how they're gonna set their tone, is that we're basically it's PE class. It's PE class and we took a field trip to the beach and we're all standing getting picked for kickball.
Yeah. Can't we just play with the giant parachute?
Yeah. That was fun. That was a great day in school. It was always good. Parachute was super fun.
That would have been funny if that just happened.
Yeah.
In the movie.
It looks like, I don't know, it looks like if you pan the camera a little bit more to the right, they would have had the volleyball court.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that like a lot of this has to do with the fact that this movie was shot in Dunkirk.
Right.
Like, today. Like the modern Dunkirk. It was shot there. And Christopher Nolan probably would have had to got permission from the town itself. And the town was probably like, oh, sure, yeah, you can film here, but just don't, mess it up. Like, don't, we got Airbnbs all up and down this place, and, we can't have you, shutting anything down.
Right. We can only have the sausage and cheese cart set aside for so long.
Right.
Before the owner starts to get pissed.
Yeah, you got about a week, Chris, to figure this out.
A couple hours a day.
Yeah. Because it would be just so hard for you to find a beach somewhere in the fucking world to film this thing.
Yeah.
And make it look like it's supposed to look. For some weird reason, like this is like in his repertoire, like how you would describe his style. Like if you look up Christopher Nolan's style on Google, like there's a short little blurb about it, which is Christopher Nolan uses documentary style lighting and real world locations. Cool. So that means you don't like actually use any lighting to like enhance your film in any way. You just film it as is, which is going into my point, which is Dunkirk almost entirely, like the evacuation itself, happened at night, which makes sense because it's the early 1940s. Aircraft don't have like sophisticated radar or anything, so German planes are gonna have a harder time finding their targets at night as they are during the day. It would be ridiculous to carry out this operation during the day, and they didn't. And I just think that even if you could think if the movie really did take place mostly at night, like mostly operation stuff like that, you would add to the tension because like the soldiers would also have a hard time seeing things coming at them, and you could have even more chaos that way.
Yeah, there's a portion of this movie that does take place at night, but it's a very small part of it. The majority of it takes place during a very bright, clear day. Yeah,
because that's the day he had to film. Because Christopher Nolan, he's not going to work at night. He's gonna work in the morning, and then 5 o'clock comes around, he's gonna turn it off, and that's gonna be it. And if he's not using any actual lighting, he has to shoot in the day.
I'm going to say something real quick, which is that I think something that started making Christopher Nolan movies worse was his, I don't want to say obsession, but his penchant for just wanting to use IMAX cameras for everything more and more and more. It started with The Dark Knight, where he filmed some of the action scenes in IMAX, and they looked really cool in Dark Knight. If you think about the opening bank heist and the action scene that takes place over on the streets of Gotham, it's done in these very big, wide
like when the Joker
shots.
is leaning out of the truck with the rocket launcher and stuff. It's really
the
cool.
part where he flips the semi.
Yeah.
It's out of this big open street.
Of course that looks cool in IMAX. It's gonna look cool every time.
So he started experimenting with IMAX early on, 10 years prior to making this film. And ever since then, he's just been wanting to use it more and more and more and more to the point where in Dunkirk, I want to say IMAX takes up somewhere between 60 and 70% of all shots or all filming of the entire thing.
Which you say that, but I think that doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna detract from a film.
No,
it's just the IMAX camera is there to give these grand, huge shots, to add scope. To add to have these wide expanses. It's basically the cinematographer's dream. To have these high powered cameras that can capture real light and things in their real setting.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't pair with somebody who doesn't use like stylistic lighting or doesn't use stylistic camera work. You can't. He's just thinking that you can get an IMAX camera, set it on the beach, and like you can have an Oscar film.
I feel like what he's doing is he's taking the cameras themselves are taking precedence over the content.
Yeah, it's like a tech demo. It seems to me that when you are his method of like wanting to use the IMAX camera to its full potential is again the mindset of he's thinking more about the theater experience than he is about the content of his films. Like he's thinking more about when you because I know I've seen a movie in theaters where I come out of it and I'm like, wow, that was what a experience that was. Like what a like that was insane. But then like you let it kind of like sit with you for a couple of days and you're like, I don't know. Like this happened and that happened and this didn't make any sense and that character was kind of dumb and the acting was terrible. And what did I like about this movie? It's like, why did I come out of the theater like all like excited and then like a few days later I'm just like, that actually kind of sucked.
That reminds me of when I saw Prometheus.
Oh, that's a great example. Yeah, coming out of Prometheus was like, wow, like it was such a like a kind of a bendy experience, and then you start to actually think critically about the film. You're like, wow, that was like one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's one of the most visually spectacular movies I've ever seen. And then I saw it with a group of friends, and then we were all initially pretty impressed with it, and then we all stood around in the parking lot for a good half hour or so just talking about it, and then
slowly unraveling.
As we kept talking, we just started realizing, as we actually started using our brains, we started thinking, oh, wow, that movie was terrible.
Yeah, it's one of it's one of the most like just I don't know, like I want to save Prometheus for like a later discussion.
Oh yeah. We don't.
I don't want to get into it.
For example.
Yeah. I want to save Prometheus for another time because that's a whole nother can of worms. Like, I want to move on here to one of the biggest problems in almost every Christopher Nolan film, like besides just the way it looks, is the writing, and just every single film just seems to like kind of suffer in this aspect. And I'm not saying it's easy to write a film, like at all. Like most films have not perfect writing. It's I mean, like what is even perfect writing? Like it's just it's one of those things I feel like is somewhat unattainable, but it's a lot easier to point out bad writing. It's like a lot easier. Like that rears its ugly head and it sticks out like a sore thumb.
It's true. There's also a lot of bad writing that masquerades as good writing,
which is, you could probably put that to like most of these films. I feel like for one thing, if I want to say something here kind of positive about it, is that he is very choosy. It's not an overly worded script. You know what I mean? Like I do like appreciate a movie that tries to tell its story a lot more visually than actually sitting there and explaining to you all the context of what's going on. It's like, no, it's like, don't tell me, show me what's going on. And that's the point of your movie. The point of a film is to like, is to not just sit there and like yell the exposition to you. It's supposed to like show you and you're supposed to kind of figure it out as you go along. For some weird reason, overly expository dialogue like seems to be like, if you ever watch like a Korean film, mm-hmm. There's some great Korean horror films, but like a tendency with like Korean directors, I've seen, is probably true with other directors too, but a tendency in like Korean film, which doesn't necessarily make it bad, but it's just kind of a quirk about it, is that they do tend to have a lot of like over expository dialogue, where it's just like, I am the man from here, and this is my journey, and this is what I'm going to do, and you are this, and like, yes, I am this, and this is what I am going to do, and this is my motivation. And it's like the actual conversation goes like that. Mm-hmm. Like it's actually like
it's one of those things that I think is not just in Korean film, but in a lot of Asian film in general.
Yeah, it's very like efficient. Like we're not going to have any nuanced kind of dialogue here. We're just like dialogue is like merely like a means to like to give information to the audience.
Right, exactly. And sometimes it works very well. For instance, one of my favorite Japanese films is a movie that came out about 10 years ago called, which I got to show you soon, is this film called Confessions. And the first 20 minutes or so is just the main character monologuing.
Right. Okay.
And just setting the stage and just bringing you all up to speed on here's what's going on.
Yeah.
And then the movie really starts and it just works.
Right.
But without...
I'm not saying you can't... I'm not saying super expository dialogue can't work. I'm just saying that it seems to be a quirk in that culture to do so. With this movie, with Dunkirk, it's like the opposite kind of approach to it, to where we're going to have very minimal dialogue. I mean, this is true for a lot. I feel like more recent war movies, for example, tend to do this a lot. Like when we saw 1917 was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
With this, it's like the dialogue that they did choose to use is just some of the most out of character, just like offhanded, like it's almost like sound bites, you know?
It's just the characters, if we could call them that, just stating the themes of the film, which are
war is hell,
heroism,
patriotism,
bravery,
king and country. You know, there's a scene where like there's like two generals standing on the dock and they're just watching all the guys on the beach. They're watching the ships coming in and all this thing. They're like talking like yeah, there is a war going on. There sure is, General. The war is bad. Yeah, it sure is. You know, like it sucks. This is not going too well. No, it's not. You know,
right, and that scene plays out a number of times actually. It's like these soldiers or these officers, commanders. I don't know what their rank is. We're not
going to pretend to know anything about
I'm not a military
this.
nerd, okay? I have other interests. But, yeah, it's these guys standing around on a dock. The war is occurring all around them. They realize the war is occurring. And then one of the officers just sort of opens his mouth and, like I said, just spews out one of the themes of the film, and then ominous or inspirational music starts occurring in the background. And
I don't know if it ever goes away.
Yeah,
the music in this film is like just somebody holding down one chord on a synthesizer and just kind of letting that go throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I want to briefly mention the score for this film, which was done by Hans Zimmer, who has become the composer for all of the Christopher Nolan films, starting with Batman Begins. And I really like Hans Zimmer. He's made some amazing scores in the past for films such as Gladiator, The Thin Red Line, Braveheart, all, The Lion King.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a very accomplished...
Prince of Egypt,
That's an accomplished resume in film score. Like, I mean, all those are great. Like, I mean, I just feel like, it's not that I have anything bad to say about Hans Zimmer, obviously. Like, he doesn't have anything to prove.
No, but
whatsoever. But I just, every once in a while... And actors do this too. They do it a lot. They just kind of phone it in.
Well, he just takes one simple motif and just hits it over and over and over and over again. It's like if you're telling a joke and you're just playing off one word or one phrase.
It's like a 1980s comedy where you just talk about gay people in 45 different ways, and that's just funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently.
Pretty much. And it started with the Batman movies and then carried over. This one is just
At least the Batman movies had a theme. There was Batman had a theme. Like there was I can't even think of it right now, but it was just the
it goes.
I think that's Doom. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it's not the most musically complex thing, but you remember it.
Yeah. I mean, and honestly, Batman movies, it wasn't such a huge component as you would think a score would be in this film.
Mm-hmm.
In this film, I feel like it was really that's one area, and I think it's something that people tend not to notice. People are like, why was that scene so flat? Like, why is the tone of this movie kind of a little bit wishy-washy. It's like sometimes the score has a really big impact on like how you're kind of supposed to feel during a scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the tone of the movie. And like I said, this movie lacks tone. It lacks any sort of like real immersion. It doesn't pull you into anything. It's just sort of this flat, lifeless, flopping carp on the deck of a boat.
Right. The number one word I would use to describe the score for this film is incessant. It never stops. And like I said, it runs off one main theme or motif, you could say, which is kind of a tick-tock.
Right, yeah, because we got a time limit. The Germans are coming, yeah.
The clock is ticking. We don't have much time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at the three different perspectives, it's a 1 day or 1 hour or 1 week. And you have this hammering out in the background constantly to different degrees of volume. And I feel like it's there because otherwise you wouldn't feel the tension as much. If you watch this film and turn the sound off, if there was a way to watch this film and just turn off the background, the score for
it's like in a video game. You just like turn off the in-game music.
Right, yeah. If there was a way to do that, like I did this actually while I was watching the film recently in preparation for this podcast, where I just turned off the volume. I just watched it with just subtitles on and no sound.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just people doing stuff.
Yeah, it's
with
like
hardly any real sense of tension or dread.
You don't even see it in their faces, really. Like, you don't even really see it in the actors. Because, like, if you look at pictures from Dunkirk, you look at the people, you see, like, guys that are, like, just, they're having to huddle in a bomb crater. Because there's no cover. They're just on a beach. They're just on a beach, and they're getting strafed by airplanes. There's, like, it's pretty much just a roulette wheel on who's going to get hit. And so you have guys just kind of like hiding under dead bodies, hiding in shell holes, like kind of like just crouching, just digging into the dirt to get any little bit of cover. And there's that feeling of desperation, that feeling of just like being so close to the edge is just lost. It doesn't feel it at all. It feels like this whole movie is just waiting in line. It's just waiting for your plane to come in to like taxi so you could get on the fucking plane. It's just waiting for your gate to open. It's just waiting for the fucking, like, you know, we're out here in Seattle. It's like we have ferry systems to get from island to island, and it's like it's just you're just sitting in your car in line waiting for the ferry to come.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, and it's just and then it comes and then it's over. You know? There's just so many factors that kind of add to this overall feeling of flatness, and we don't really have any character like differentiation. Like, there's no real like character like that stands out to me in this film. They're all kind of like these nameless kind of faces. Like, they kind of blend together. There's nothing that really sets anybody apart. I mean, like, who is the main character in this film? Like, who are we following? Like, whose perspective is it? Is it Cillian Murphy's?
Not really. There's like, you know, there aren't really any memorable characters in this film, like you just said, because they're not interesting.
No, they don't. Well, they don't attempt to like even build on any of the characters at all. They don't attempt to like. They don't start it off by saying like, oh, like one character maybe he's arrogant and he thinks that this whole thing is like we're just going to get rescued and everything's going to be fine. And then maybe by the end of the movie, when it's been a few days and they've been strafed a couple of times, maybe he's getting a little less confident. You know,
right?
There's none of that.
And, you know, and this is a problem, an ongoing problem with most of Christopher Nolan's work, is that he tends to get an absolutely stellar cast to perform in his films.
Oh, yeah.
But he just doesn't really do that much with them. This film has certain actors in it that I really like. Like, I really like Tom Hardy. I really like Cillian Murphy. I really like Kenneth Branagh. I really like... The whole cast in this movie is great.
That's the one thing, yeah, I agree with you. That's the one thing that Christopher Nolan always manages to get, these great actors. I mean, he gets Leonardo DiCaprio, he gets Ken Watanabe, he gets, like, all these great actors, and he doesn't get anything out of them. And that is the mark of a hack director, because that is a director's job. At the end of the day, a director's job is to get the most out of his actors. Okay? I mean, look at, like, Werner Herzog, for example. Like, you know, that guy, there is so many stories. I mean, this is an extreme example, obviously. But if you look up any sort of, like, listen to, like, maybe a podcast with Werner, like, or an interview or something like that, and he's talking about what he did to get, you know, a great performance out of his actors, I mean, it's insane. It's like an episode of Fear Factor. It's like, it's crazy. Like, he'll just, like, be like, oh, we're making a movie about a guy lost in the jungle. Well, we're going to drop you in the fucking jungle for a couple of days, and then we're going to come find you, and we're going to start shooting the scenes.
Right.
You know? It's like, that's obviously an extreme example, but, you know, obviously not every director has to do the extreme Werner Herzog style stuff. But, I mean, that's a true director trying to capture something on film. He's trying to capture real stuff or real emotions, even though he's shooting a fictional movie.
Right. Some of my favorite directors are absolute tyrants on the production of their
Lars
films.
von Trier.
I was actually just going to say, two of my favorite directors, Lars von Trier and Stanley Kubrick, would be great examples. Stanley Kubrick tormented Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall on the set of The Shining. How do you think Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson delivered those absolutely amazing performances that we remember? It's because he fucked with them the entire time and made them do take after take after take.
He wore them down.
Breaking them down so far.
Because The Shining is about somebody having a mental breakdown, right? Yes. It's about, like, the unraveling of somebody's mind. And he was like, what's the best way to have my actor, you know, get into a character that's mind is coming apart? Well, I'm going to fucking tear his mind apart, you know?
Yeah. And Lars von Trier has done this a number of times as well. One of the examples that immediately comes to mind to me is when he made the film Dancer in the Dark, which is a film starring the musician and singer Bjork. He was a total asshole to her and really fucked with her the entire time, to the point where, yeah, by the end of the film, or just throughout the whole process, she ended up just hating him and never wanted to make another movie ever again.
That's fine, though. He got the performance he needed.
But what we got on screen was absolutely fantastic.
I mean,
which doesn't necessarily justify it, but
right. But the thing is that, like, there's one common denominator here between Lars von Trier and Kubrick. The common denominator is that they're artists.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and not every director is an artist. Just because you're a director doesn't mean that you are artistic in any way. Okay, like, some directors, like, you know, get their start shooting commercials and stuff, and they just take that, you know, they made Lexus commercials for a number of years. And they're like, well, I have enough money now, and I really want to make a real movie, so they just, like, buy an IMAX camera and they start making movies. You know, when there's no real artistic vision that drives it, because, I mean, that's what Kubrick and all these other directors have, is that Christopher Nolan doesn't have, at least doesn't appear to have. I'm not going to say outright that he doesn't, but it just, from what I've seen, is that all of his movies lack any sort of, like, real artistic vision, yet they kind of insist upon themselves that there is one.
Right. And that's the phrase that I think really brings it all together, which is his films, and this film especially, it insists upon itself. It insists upon itself that you're supposed to like it, that you're supposed to love it. I don't want to talk too much about this, but 1917 does the exact same thing. That movie sucked, by the way. Like, that movie was so bad. From the very first scene, I leaned over to Jordan. I was like, oh, fuck it. Here we go. Like, here we go. This is going to be another fucking garbage director doing some gimmicky crap to, like, and hide it behind patriotism and hide it behind the fact that it's the 100-year anniversary of World War I, and just try to, like, just pour schlock over everybody. And everybody's going to, like, it's like, that movie is, like, the exact same thing as, like, somebody pouring out a fine wine and then out of a bottle, and then just, like, pouring in shitty box wine and giving it to somebody, and then that person, like, does the full sommelier on the shitty box wine. You know, like, it's like we know you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, because that was freaking this is box wine from Safeway. But here's a real puzzler for you. Would you say 1917 or Dunkirk which film would you say is better?
I would say Dunkirk is better.
Mm-hmm.
only because Dunkirk had a few bright moments where, like I said, I'm going to try and say some good stuff about Dunkirk here. I did enjoy every scene with Tom Hardy.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because this film does take place with, the whole premise of the film is it's set with three different perspectives to kind of break apart the timeline a little bit, which I think on a certain level is interesting. I don't think a whole lot really comes from it exactly. But
there are a few moments where the pace is kind of changed up a little bit, and we get a different perspective, and it's a fresh thing than just looking into a bunch of young strapping lads that have freshly pressed uniforms that just came out of the costuming warehouse, standing on a beach, trying their very, very best to look sad.
Right. But yeah, I would say one thing I did enjoy watching this film on repeat viewings was the aerial combat scenes in this film are really well done.
I really like
some pretty impressive shots done here, and I think that within that perspective of the film, which unfortunately is the shortest one in there, and to be fair, it's kind of meant to be because it's only supposed to take place within.
It kind of shows everything I think it can show, or it covers everything I think it wanted to cover.
Yeah, and like I was saying, it's all meant to be within 1 hour of real time.
Right.
So obviously it can't show or take up as much screen time as the perspective that's supposed to be 1 day or 1 week even. So
one little detail, which I think is honestly, and this is not even that big of a thing, this is kind of how bad this movie is, but my favorite thing about Dunkirk happens during the dogfighting scene with Tom Hardy and the planes fighting the German planes, is that the way that the sound and atmosphere is portrayed inside the cockpit, where like you don't like the score, I think, stops, and you just kind of have this sort of like silence, sort of like it feels like you're sealed into the aircraft, you know. It kind of puts you inside of it. Like it has that kind of airtight seal where the sounds outside the aircraft are somewhat muffled. Like when the scene is taking place inside. When it's outside, obviously it's different. But like when you're actually in Tom Hardy's like first person kind of perspective, the sounds going on around it feel very accurate and immersive. You know, it's cool. Like I like how like the sound is sort of choked and muffled. And you feel like you're in there, and pretty much all you hear is like his breathing and like him operating the aircraft and stuff. And like that's a nice touch. Like it's a cool thing because you could just be like Independence Day, and just have like this blazing score going on the entire time, and just not having like any sort of like real world sort of like immersion whatsoever.
Right. You know? Yeah. There's a really those parts are done really well, and also whenever one of the aircraft gets hit,
right, you really feel like it's got a thud to it, which is also, I mean, and again, we didn't get too far, but this just goes right back to, this is another aspect of the theater, quote unquote theater experience, where that is fine. I'm not saying that the theater experience is something that should be avoided or anything like that. I'm not saying there's anything bad about going to see a movie that sounds really good on giant speakers and looks good on a giant screen. I'm saying that, like, what happens when you watch this movie at home? Like, what happens when you watch it outside the theater? Is it only supposed to be seen in the theaters? And if not, like, I just think that's dumb. I don't think movies should be, like, things that you only have to see in the theaters. Like, maybe the most recent Godzilla, for example.
Yeah,
I'm probably not going to watch that again, but I had a ton of fun watching it in the theater. You know what I mean? Because I'm not saying it's a good movie. Like, for example, like the acting is awful. The writing is literal fucking a tub of diarrhea. But it's giant monster battles on a huge screen with a giant sound system, and it was badass. Like, I liked it. But I'm not going to sit at home and watch it. Like, I'm not going to like watch it on my laptop. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to happen.
Right. And that's the way that Nolan envisions all of his movies must be seen, is that unless you see it in a Cinerama type auditorium, there's really
how pretentious is that?
he really is insistent upon that. Well, for instance, he has a new movie coming out that has been advertised called Tenet, and not much has been revealed about the movie or really what it's about. And the film is set to come out this July, and they're just wrapping it up right now, I guess, finishing up the editing and stuff, but he's actually considering holding it back if theaters aren't open again by then, because the film's not worthy to be seen.
Yeah, it's not worthy. Yeah, there's a bunch of other movie studios are making movies that were supposed to come out in theaters available for streaming during the pandemic.
Right.
Which is, I think that should just be a thing anyways. Mm-hmm. I don't think you should have to go to the theater to see a movie. I think it's like that. Those times are coming to an end. Like, that's why movies are the way they are, is honestly because of streaming, I think. Is that since we have such access to them at home, you have to make it worth it for people to see a movie in the theater, which is why all these movies don't hold up at home at all. It's like all of Christopher Nolan's movies, he's trying to make something that is like kind of like on the surface level seems like a very tasteful, a very iconic type style of filmmaking, yet it doesn't hold up at all outside the theaters because you don't have the sound system, you don't have the big screen, you don't have that kind of experience. So it's like, if you're going to make that, just make Godzilla, why are you like advertising your movies to be these like grand events when it's like you could just be making Godzilla movies and like that's fine and that belongs in the theater. That's a theater experience. I mean, movie theaters are becoming amusement parks and movies are becoming amusement park rides.
Right. Well, this was a point that Martin Scorsese brought up last year.
Oh yeah,
to much controversy.
Yeah, leave him alone. He's right.
I agree with him.
Most people do.
He was talking about how, just as a quick aside, he was talking about how certain films coming out, like the Marvel films, aren't really films. They're more like amusement park rides. And he says that
it must be really sad for him to see that. I mean, I agree with him. I think that, if you're somebody like Martin Scorsese, like Spielberg, with all kinds of stuff, the people that actually put love and care into their movies, and it's their art, it's their stuff, it's their, they're trying to make it to where these movies last. That's why you can watch Goodfellas today, and it holds up. It's because it was designed to be that way. It's designed to be a movie that is timeless. Maybe not implicitly, but just the fact that you put that much care and love into it makes it timeless. It shows on the screen.
Yeah, and even someone like Scorsese, who's very much into traditional filmmaking. He doesn't really like shooting on digital. He's more traditional in his approach. He's
been making movies since the 70s,
early 70s.
I'd say. I mean, anybody who's they're not gonna they're gonna be very protective about their medium.
Yeah, and he's pretty old now, but even he's very open-minded. He said that, his latest film, The Irishman, he was talking about it and talking about how it was being released simultaneously both in theaters and on Netflix streaming. And he said, I prefer people do go see it in theaters. I have to be open-minded and realize that it's also good for people to have more options for how to see your film.
Right. Because,
and I think that's a good thing, especially when we consider the amount of stuff being released these days.
So much.
There's so much.
I mean, I it's hard for me to even keep... Every time I turn on one of the streaming platforms, it's there's a new giant thing. And everybody's bitching at me because I haven't watched Tiger King.
Yeah, me neither.
It's
I'm not going to.
I'm probably not going to. It's I have been hearing about Joe Exotic for a while, and I kind of got the gist of it, and then that story came out, and it just, but anyways, the act of Martin Scorsese putting it out on Netflix as well as in theaters, to me, shows that he's confident enough in his movie that you don't need the theater experience for it to hold it up, because he's confident that he made a good movie. Personally, I didn't care for The Irishman that much, but I do respect it, and I respect Martin Scorsese, like, no matter what he does. I mean, like, after watching Hugo, I still respected him and stuff.
Well, he's willing to adapt. He's willing to adapt.
He's willing to put something out. And, like, by the way, I'm just going to put this caveat now. During the pandemic, yeah, like I said earlier, all these theaters and film, all these production companies and stuff like that are, and studios are deciding to put these movies out on streaming platforms so that people don't have to go to the theaters. To me, it feels kind of like a dick move and a pretentious fucking move for Christopher Nolan to, like, hold this back. There's not too many directors that aren't going along with this right now, and he's one of them. And to me, it just screams like, if I release this movie not in a theater, everybody's going to hate it because the fucking walls are going to fall down and everybody's going to start seeing what he actually does. And they're not going to have the big sound system or the big screen to hide anything to like hold up the movie anymore. And it's going to do bad, you know? And you get people in the theaters, like, you know, like, how often do you, like, get your money back in the theater? It's like, if you're in the theater and you're watching a bad movie, it's got to be real bad for you to get up and go get your money back. If you're on streaming, like, you don't like something, you just got to press the circle button on your PlayStation controller or your remote, and you're out of that thing. You know? Like, you don't have to fucking watch any of it anymore, you know? And you can probably, like, I don't know, you can probably get a refund. I don't know how you would, but you might be able to get a refund for it. But I'm just saying, like, it's so much easier to, like, get out of a movie when you're just watching on your TV, you know? It's like, it's maybe people, like, watching it in theaters are just going to be like, well, I'm already here. You know, I might as well finish this piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, if I had, I don't know, there's definitely several points I felt like walking out of 1917, but...
Oh, my God. Fucking...
Sorry to bring us back to that.
I know. I don't even want to think about it, man.
But
it's
I chose to stay there because...
Look, here's the thing. That's why this podcast exists.
Right.
All right? Because 1917 is another movie that is like 10 out of 10, one of the most beautiful fucking things I've ever seen in my entire life. And people don't understand that they've been manipulated by a gimmick. Well, it's like, and it's another movie that insists upon itself. It's like, it told you that you're supposed to like it before you even saw it.
Well, if you make a movie and you get Roger Deakins to do the photography for it, it's gonna look amazing. But
the trailer, the freaking the behind the scenes, like all the poster, everything, it looked amazing. It looked really good. I came to you when I saw this trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I came to you and I was like, Jordan,
I remember.
This is going to be awesome. Like, this movie, like, nobody ever makes a World War I movie. It's been, you know, like, I am very interested in the World War I conflict. I always have been. It's been very fascinating to me. And I've always wanted them to make one about World War I. I couldn't wait. Sort of World War I couldn't wait for this movie to come out. We saw it, like, on the first weekend. And within the first scene, I was like, fuck.
Oh, God.
Damn it. This is going to suck. Like...
Right, yeah. But yeah, like I said, you know, get Roger Deakins to photograph or be your director of photography. He's going to be great. But if you don't have someone like, say, the Coen brothers directing the film and actually making a great film along with the beautiful visuals, then you're really left with just an ultimately hollow experience.
Yeah, it's like...
that leaves you disappointed and also...
It just
angry,
just anger's pissed off. Like, yeah, I just felt like I wasted my money. But come back to Dunkirk here. There was a few things I wanted to say. Like, this movie has just so many moments I feel of missed opportunity.
Right.
There is a few things like I said, if this movie was just a little more historically accurate, you have a film here. You have a lot to work with. And I'm not going to say, like, every movie needs to be historical accurate, for one thing. For example, like of course, I'm not trying to be nitpicky about historical inaccuracies here. But if it was more historically accurate, you would have much more stuff to work with. For example, like, you know, obviously Braveheart isn't historically accurate all the way. You know, even Saving Private Ryan is not historically... The Patriot is not historically accurate, but they're great films because, God damn it, Mel Gibson, you know, story structure.
They're entertaining Exactly.
That man can make a great fucking movie. I don't care like what he says over the phone about the Jewish people. Like, yes, that's awful, and he should be punished for that. But you can't say he doesn't make great movies. He does. He makes amazing films.
Exactly.
But
watch Apocalypto.
Yeah, it's there's no contest. Like I wish Mel Gibson would have directed Dunkirk.
Yeah, I mean the last film. Well, actually, come to think of it, the last film Mel Gibson did direct was Hacksaw Ridge.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a World War II film.
That's originally what this podcast was going to be about. It was going to be 100 episodes about Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
Right.
And depending on how successful or how the response is to this, we might pivot to that.
Right. I kind of liked Hacksaw Ridge. It was okay. It was okay. It was a bit schlocky from time to time, but I thought it held up. It was it was better than this movie.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is that like there's so many missed opportunities in Dunkirk. For example, one historical fact is that there was during the evacuation, there was British and French generals kind of having to work with each other to coordinate the evacuation, and they fucking hated each other. They didn't like each other at all. They disagreed about everything. And that's a real, like, I wish I would have had a scene of that. A scene, like, of them trying to work out this monumental plan. Because it's not like they planned to have an evacuation there and stuff. They were literally, like, the armies were retreating. And they had to retreat to this town. And then they were like, okay, now what the fuck do we do? And so they had to scramble. And they were like, all right, I guess we got to come get you. And stuff, so they had to scramble and they had like a week to like scramble a bunch of boats that were obviously like having to like bob and weave around submarines and mines and all sorts and aircraft. They're having to get over there, and it was a crazy undertaking that these guys had to do. And we didn't get any of that. We got two generals standing on a dock saying that the war is going on, and it's the men are getting restless. It's like no fucking shit. There's planes like shooting you from the sky. You're on a beach. Got nowhere to go.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like nothing really amounts to much with that. You have all this stuff, right? That on the surface level is very interesting. You have soldiers struggling to reach safety after jumping ship. You have regular folk trying desperately.
On paper,
to
it
save
sounds good.
People fighting for the country. You have young men waiting nervously on the docks and on the beach and not knowing what may be coming, if they're going to be attacked again by another plane. You don't know who's going to die or who's going to live.
You don't even really have like the soldiers sort of like blaming the higher ups, in which during Dunkirk they did, because the higher ups spent more time arguing with each other without being productive. And I feel like the soldiers were just like, all right, I guess we're standing here. All right, I guess we got to wait. All right, I guess we got to jump off the ship. All right, I guess we got to, hide in this place, It's like nobody ever, shows any resentment for, the people that are coordinating this whole thing.
Right. Well, in a sequence, or I should say, in a scene where you have people nervously waiting around, you don't feel that. You just see a bunch of extras sitting around. That's it.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of extras sitting around. There's really nothing in this film that gets me, with some exceptions, like we were talking about with the aerial combat scenes. There's really nothing here that gets me that invested in what's going on. There's really no build-up or unity. Things just happen in the course of, I think this it's under 2 hours. It's actually one of the shorter war movies I've ever seen. It's like an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, how long can you show scenes of guys standing on the fucking beach waiting for a boat?
You could, in theory, do that for a really, really long time.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I imagine Dunkirk, the YouTube 10-hour version.
But there would be a way to do that that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because there's so many scenes in here where we have the long sweeping sort of cinematographer's dream kind of shots, where you're trying to, usually when you do shots like that, when you do these grandiose, you're trying to show scope. For example, the movie, which came out 10 years prior to this film, Atonement.
Right.
It's a great film. It's definitely, in my top, my top 100 for sure. there is a scene where it shows the Dunkirk evacuation, or something similar at least. Is it Dunkirk?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it shows the actual evacuation, and it is much, much more accurate to like what it actually looked like. I mean, it is a crazy scene, but it's like one scene. It's like a tracking shot that goes all the way around the beach, and it shows all the clutter and the chaos and the mud and the blood. It shows all that stuff. And
it's actually a pretty harrowing scene. And it's not just the people there. You know, you see the chaos of the whole situation, and you have the commanders, I guess, they're destroying their own vehicles. They're shooting the horses.
Yeah,
in the
they're
head.
destroying the vehicles so the Germans can't use them. They're killing the horses because they can't take them with them.
And that's fucked up.
It's hard. And in that one scene that lasts 6 minutes?
It's about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. It tells more. It has more character and tells more story than Christopher Nolan can do in 90 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's you can get the entire.
And that's not even what Atonement is about.
No, it's just It's just happening in the background. Like the movie isn't even about that Dunkirk at all. It's following a character, and he happens to go there and be in the war. And it's just that in that one scene, which is not even a part of the main plot, it tells more about that entire event than a whole movie dedicated to it does. And it's just, how many missed opportunities are we going to have here? You know, like how many misrepresentations? And I think at the end of the day, the reason why I really this irks me more is that it's just disrespectful to the people that went through it. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just disrespectful to the people because you're not showing what they went through. You're not showing it. You're making it look like it wasn't that bad. You're making it look like all that stuff when they came home and they were all fucked up with PTSD and stuff, and they're all like messed up. You just kind of, it wasn't that bad. You got shot at a little bit. You had to jump in the water. I guess that kind of sucked. It was cold, probably. You know, oh no. You know, I just feel like it's a slap in the face to the great men and women who went through that horrible time in our history. You know, and it's I don't understand why people don't see that.
Right. Exactly. And that's one thing that's a little frustrating about talking about this movie. And this is one of the reasons why we want to talk about this film it's just because it was pretty much universally praised. I had a very hard time finding any negative.
There's not even anything negative about Christopher Nolan.
Or just Christopher Nolan in general. On
the internet, you know, and it's just
I tried.
Yeah, we tried, you know, and it's just one of those things where it's we're not these super what's the word, just cynical dudes that are just they'll just pick apart anything, you know, and stuff. It's just it's just we feel like the quality of things of film and art and stuff like that have just been going just down and down and down and down and down. Yeah. And it's just the bar for film is getting lower and lower and lower. The bar for music gets lower. Everything. It's just it feels real, obviously with film and music and all kind of stuff like that, there's great stuff out there. The problem is that it's just not in the forefront. You have to look around. You can always find great music and great film. You just got to do the work. You have to do a little bit of effort, and you got to find it. It's out there, you know. But the films that are putting them in the forefront, and especially films about historical periods that are very near and dear to some people, that actually have affected people and are still affecting people to this day. Dunkirk still affects people and families to this day. I believe has a bit of a responsibility to portray it correctly and portray it in a way that's respectful.
Yeah, I think a better example of, let's say, a war film that, you know, besides Saving Private Ryan and such, that really show respect for the events that they're portraying.
I'd say The Pianist.
The Pianist, I would say Flags of Our Fathers and the Letters from Iwo Jima. You know, as bad as this,
Letters to Iwo Jima is a fantastic film that really, I think, does hit the nail on the head for the most part, at least from my perspective. Obviously,
I'd say pretty much all the war films that Clint Eastwood has directed.
Oh, yeah, he's good at those. Oh, he's definitely excellent. Good at those. Because when Clint Eastwood is a patriotic guy, you know, he's gonna he's going to put some love into it. He's going to put some real effort into it. He's not going to, like, lackadaisy fucking slap together a movie, you know what I mean? Like Christopher Nolan will.
I just like that Clint Eastwood actually had the balls to make a film from the American perspective with Flags of Our Fathers, and then release a film a little bit later, which took place during the same time period, with a primarily Japanese cast and mostly spoken in Japanese with English subtitles. Which
I think Letters to Iwo Jima is... I always like... I'm kind of a sucker for this. Like, and this actually does happen. There's a scene in Hacksaw Ridge where this happens, is I really enjoy, or not enjoy, but I really respect, like, scenes that are war movies that take the time to make people realize that the enemy is still a person. It's still another human being that you're fighting against. That human being has a family. That human being has a mom and a dad. They probably have kids. You know what I mean? They're probably kids themselves. You know what I mean? It's like they are still human beings at the end of the day. And there's a scene in Hacksaw Ridge where the medic, because Hacksaw Ridge is famously about a famous medic.
Yeah, he was a pacifist.
Who was a pacifist.
He was a conscientious objector.
Yeah, but there's a scene where he treats an enemy soldier. Mm-hmm. And the enemy soldier is like, whoa, like, I didn't know Americans, like, did this. And it's like, There's also a scene in Letters to Iwo Jima where they take an American prisoner. And they have, like, a connection moment, between two of them. They come to an understanding. There's a bit of a connection between them two. And they realize, hey, this guy's got a family at home, too. He's writing to his mom just like I write to my mom.
Right. We don't necessarily know the circumstances that led him up to the point of being here.
Right.
A lot of these people were forced to.
Exactly. And I do like it when war films take the time to, like, do that. Because, like, when they don't, sometimes they just get a little bit...
black and white.
Yeah, they get a little bit, I don't know, like, there's, like, very dehumanizing for, like, a lot of stuff. It's like, it's almost like a weird, like, it kind of becomes propaganda in a way, like some movies that I even like are kind of propaganda-y, like Black Hawk Down and stuff like that.
Oh,
yeah. it's those movies that kind of portray, like, the enemy as these, like, just savage, like, subhuman or, like, less inferior people, And I like Black Hawk Down a lot. I'm not saying that it's like a malicious film or it does this maliciously, but it's like it's a thin line that I think a movie, like a war film, has to walk, because it's like you could be talking about something that happened like 30 years ago. And those people are, like, our friends now, it's like, how are they going to feel about this coming out, but Dunkirk, I feel like, just doesn't serve a purpose. Like, it does, at the end of the day, it doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't like, bring any new light into the event. It doesn't give, like, any sort of, like, pause to what happened.
It doesn't really serve a purpose. I would say it doesn't really serve a purpose beyond just being some kind of technical achievement.
I mean, it's loud.
It's mostly there just to serve the ego of the director.
It's and so much of this just feels like everything was the way things were shot were so circumstantial, and those circumstances would be, it has to be close enough to Christopher Nolan's hotel that he's staying in. It has to be in a place where it's got a nice concrete floor for him to set up the IMAX equipment. It's got to be in Dunkirk, because as long as it's in Dunkirk, like, he gets points for that for some reason, And it's just, I just feel like this whole movie is just ego stroking off the wall.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's just interesting that this film is actually the highest grossing World War II film ever made.
Well, of course it is. Yeah.
It made...
Well, I mean, relative to what? Like...
Well, if you think about all the World War II films ever, which there are many,
It's all marketing, dude. It's like that. I'm telling you, like, I was excited about this movie when I was hearing about it.
Yeah, same here.
It's all marketing. It got us into the theater. It got me into the theater to see it because I was excited about it. And I'm sure it got everybody else into the theater. And I didn't ask for my money back. I just, you know, like I said, like it's a lot. I'm not going to bring myself, like if I'm in a restaurant, and this is just me. I'm not saying this is like wrong, like you're a bad person for doing this. This is just personally what I do. Is that if I get my food and there's something a little bit wrong with it, I don't send it back. I just don't. Unless it's like something awful, like really, really bad where I can't eat it, then yeah. But I'm not going to send it back because it gave me white bread instead of wheat bread. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to eat it. Like, cause like, you know, you gotta talk to the waitress. You gotta do that thing where it's like, oh, you know, but I'm not saying you guys are bad. I'm just saying that like, I really want wheat bread and this, that. And she's like, all right, okay. You know, and then you gotta wait extra time for your food to come out. And it just becomes a whole thing. And the manager comes around and he's like, so like you're not happy with the bread. And, you know, like, well, can you please fill out this comment card? And like, it becomes a whole ordeal, you know, and sometimes it's easier just to eat the fucking white bread. You know, and that's how I feel in movies sometimes, where it's like, I'm not going to get up and like go to the manager and like be that guy. Cause like, you know, be that guy that's like, you know, in line and you're behind him and he's like talking to the manager about something and you're just trying to buy a ticket or something. You know, it's like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't inconvenience people.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, so
I'm kind of same. You know, I've had some pretty bad experiences at restaurants over the years, but I mean, that's it. It's just a fucking meal.
It's it's whatever. Who cares, you know? And that's the way I feel in the theater too. I'm just like, fuck it.
I'm not going to go home, get on Yelp afterwards and write a negative review.
No. I'm going to save my anger for years.
I'm just not going to go there again.
Right.
Or if I go, I'll get something different.
Right. Exactly. You know, I just, it's just hard because, I feel like the odd one out, like when I see these movies and I just think they suck because all it is praised. All it is 10 out of 10. And I just cannot for the life of me figure out why.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the same for pretty much every Christopher Nolan movie. The ones that have all come out over the last 10 or 15 years.
All right. So I think that just about wraps it up for Dunkirk. We're going to be probably coming back to Christopher Nolan for another one of his movies. I don't want to do too much on him, but because I think that this movie kind of encompasses everything that I don't like about him. Like it's sort of like it's all in one little package. You know, we'll probably talk about maybe one or two of his other films and then move on. But yeah, any final thoughts, Jordan?
Yeah, I think you pretty much summed it up right there. I don't really have much else to say about the film other than it's something that really could have been great and just ended up being very disappointing, and I'm just trying to understand what everybody liked about it so much.
All right, well, we'll be back to look at something else that everybody seems to like and we hate.
Yeah, about a certain caped crusader.
Oh yeah, a certain flying nocturnal mammalian man.
I heard that Heath Ledger does a very good job as the jokester.
Yeah, I hear that he's joking all over the place.
Hey, I'm joking.
Yeah, I'm fucking joking here! All right, see you later, fuckers.
All right, see you guys.